Hello, my name is Inga Schilling, and I'm one of the docents here at the Ham House, which is part of the Dubuque Historical Society. And today I'm going to talk to you about and show you what it was like to attend a one-room schoolhouse. Here on our campus we have the Humke School, which was an actual one-room schoolhouse not too far from here, near the fairgrounds on Humke Road. And thus the name of the school is the Humke School. The school was built in 1889, and like most one-room schoolhouses, it was in existence until the 1960s. At one time, Iowa had the largest number of one-room schools in the country, but most of them closed in the 1960s, just like the Humke School. We're going to show you a photo of the Humke School being moved by truck and trailer from Humke Road over here to the area close to Eagle Point Park. And here is a photo of Humke School taken in the 1880s. Naturally, one-room schools were very popular and families attended those schools. So it was quite common for you to have your brother or your sister in your classroom. Teachers after the Civil War were primarily women. Before the Civil War, they were men. An average salary for a female teacher was $75 a month. Elizabeth Schuler was the teacher here at Humke School, and her photo is in this picture. Elizabeth was a maiden. She lived with her brother Cletus on a farm near Centralia. When Cletus died, she couldn't take care of the farm, so she sold the farm, and she used that money to pay tuition for a normal school education where she got her teacher's certificate. And then she taught here in this school. The children would arrive about the same time as our kids go to school nowadays. Their school day was typically from about 9 o'clock to 3 p.m., just like ours. So when the children would arrive, they would line up outside, and we would have boys on one side, girls on the other, and Miss Schuler would go out and ring her bell, and the children would enter into the classroom. They would file in single file. We don't have a cloakroom with this one-room school. Some did, but we do have hooks in the back, and they would hang up their cloaks, their coats and hats and scarves on the hooks back there, and also they would place their lard buckets or their baskets with their lunches in it. No hot lunch, all cold lunch. The only way you'd get a hot lunch is if you brought a potato and we could put it in the stove, and then you could have a baked potato for lunch. They would file in and start our day. We would start with the Pledge of Allegiance and singing the national anthem. And I always remind the students that back in the 1880s, there weren't 50 stars on the flag. There were only 46 stars. New Mexico, Arizona, Hawaii, and Alaska weren't states then. When we say the Pledge of Allegiance, the students would say it slightly differently too. They would not use the words "under God." The words "under God" in our Pledge of Allegiance were added in 1954. So then we would start our day. Miss Schuler really wanted the students to be very literate, and she would start with the gem of the day. The gem of the day was usually an important phrase or a poem, famous poem. And the students are doing two things with this. They're learning, they're memorizing and reciting, and then they can also practice their penmanship. And how did they practice their penmanship? Why? With slates. So at each of our desks, the students have a slate with a little cloth to clean it off and some chalk, and they would practice their penmanship. The teacher, Miss Schuler, had 6 grades in this classroom. So she would give a lot of seat work, and then she would call up each grade level and work with them individually. So while the students were working on their recitation and on their penmanship, she might be working with the students on the words of the day. She really wanted her students to be literate, so she would have different vocabulary words for them to learn, to look up and write the definitions of. And lots of times she would say to the students, when you go home, if you hear any words that you don't understand, bring them back and we'll have those as the words of the day. I bet that caused some funny things from time to time with those words of the day. Of course, reading was a very important part of the classroom day, and the students all had McGuffey's readers in their desks, and each one was for their grade level. And she would call them up and do the reading practice with them. Now the McGuffey's reader, when I have students come here, one of the things they notice is there's very few pictures, black and white, and there's a lot of vocabulary in the McGuffey's reader. But there are some interesting stories for them to read. After reading, we would have math. Only back then, math was called ciphering. And so again, their slates are going to come in handy as we do math problems. I have the students work on math problems on an abacus, and they would have individual ones. I have this one, and we would practice doing our ciphering. All kinds of math problems depending on their grade level on the abacus. When it's time for lunch and recess, they have about an hour. And when I talk to students today that come into our and visit our school, they say that they have about the same amount of time for lunch and for recess. Of course, here, lunch would be right inside at their desks, unless it's a very nice day, and then they could sit outside. Same thing with recess. There's indoor recess, outdoor recess, depending upon the weather. I'm always surprised when we have school groups here for Pioneer Days, when I ask them, what do you think children in the 1800s did for recess? They start naming a lot of different games, a lot of different sports, and you know what? Most of them are the same things that they're doing today. They talk about playing marbles, tag games, lots of tag games, competitive sports, jump rope. When you get down to playground equipment though, that's a real difference. They did not have much in the way of playground equipment in the 1880s. Most of it was just logs or a swing with a rope, jump rope, very primitive playground equipment. That's one of the things kids really mention that they miss going to a one-room school nowadays. After recess, we would study civics. Civics is studying about our country. We've got pictures, portraits of the presidents around here. The president, when this school was in operation, was President Grover Cleveland. So they would learn about civics. Geography, I've got a globe here. I have extra books for them to read. We'd also study hygiene. Science, a lot of times, could be done outside because we could collect things and look for different animals and study them. And also we did a little bit of spelling. Of course, spelling bees were a popular game to play back then. The students sometimes would invite other students from other schools on a Friday afternoon, or we would have them come and visit, and that's when we would do some competitive games, and we'd also do spelling bees at that. Toward the end of the day, the students would help with cleaning the chalkboard, helping stoke the fire, cleaning the floors, and then they would leave. I would stay behind and start grading papers until Mr. Humke arrived, and then I could go back home. Okay, well, we hope you've enjoyed your visit today at our one-room schoolhouse. And if you'd like to really come and sit in one of our desks and participate in some of our classes, stop by the Ham House and check out our hours, and the schoolhouse will be open for you to enjoy.